Hi there, and today I'm going to show you all the parts I have used, including this Spectrum remote control and a bunch of loads of electronic parts I've been buying for this submarine project. Here's a set of parts: brushless motors, batteries, etc. I'm going to start with the main fuselage, if I can call it like this, a PVC tube about 60 centimeters long and 12.5 centimeters diameter. Simple PVC tube. And then this part, rear hatch, just a screw on top. I've bought in PVC DIY shop. It goes with the this tube. I glued the part. It'll be nice and watertight. Very useful. Now there we can see two things: a white sort of solid cardboard plank, which will go in the tube and act as a support to hold all the electronics on it, and all the little grey rectangular bits cut into PVC tube. These little rectangles are gonna be glued inside the tube and used as a support to hold in place this white solid cardboard plank. As you're gonna see just right now what I mean, there we are, two bits glued, one on the top, one on the bottom. The plank is gonna slide in between the two. I did this 4 times, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, so 8 little rectangles glued with PVC glue. And now the electronics. This is the plank I've manufactured a bit. That's the rear part, accessible via the hatch, and you have different things. You have the water pump on the right, this water pump that can pump in both ways, upwards, downwards, deliberately to fill up and empty the syringe. Then in orange on the left, the antenna receiver, on the left 2 electric speed controls, both for the engines and for the pump, and 1 servo on the outer left. The second servo is underneath, you can't see it, but there are 2 servos for the 2 fins, a top fin and a bottom fin on this submarine. And the syringe and the GoPro on the far left end. Syringe fitted in with a tube connected to the pump. So that's the size of the plank, about 52 centimeters long in a 60 centimeters tube. Just a bunch of parts, and just to give you an idea of the size, that's what I've manufactured, engineered and cut into to put the syringe, etc. So 52 centimeters long, about 11 centimeters wide. You have to do this accordingly to your own PVC tube diameter and re-engineer it. I had to adjust it progressively. And these were different attempts to fix the GoPro at the front of the plank. I remind you, in the front of the submarine I've got a plexiglass window, and I want the GoPro to be in front and see through. This is a first attempt, it's not the final result, but it's a first attempt to fix the GoPro. I have also managed to put 2 LED lights in front to try and lighten the water when in sort of dark water, but I'll show you this final work a bit later. And bearings. I needed bearings for the fins, for the top and bottom fin to turn, to rotate the fin and make it watertight. These are not the right dimensions for the bearings. The bearings are actually, in my case, they are 6 millimeter diameter inner diameter, and I think it's probably 1.5 mil exterior diameter. Because I had 6 mil diameter tubes, aluminium tubes, that would go inside the inner diameter of the bearing. So these are not the right dimensions, but they're the same thing I've bought. They're not completely watertight, but I put a load of grease around it, which made it watertight. So there are the bearings I received in this little plastic tube and a bunch of cables. Typical RC cables, just in case I needed extra length. That's one step forward. This is the front without the plexiglass. You can see the little rectangles glued in and the plank. Slide it in the tube. It fits there and it's going to have all the electronics on it, as you've already seen. A few Meccano parts have found this very useful to use a few bits of Meccano parts. They're solid, a bit rough and big, but it's solid, and when you want to fix something solid, it's very good. This is what I use for the GoPro. As you can see, this is the final thing I've used. Just a few bits of Meccanos to hold the GoPro case, waterproof case, and that will be simply screwed in the white cardboard. It's not quite cardboard, it's very solid. Not quite wood plank, but almost. Just a few bunch of Meccano parts, but the left part is really what I've kept finally, and it worked. Just different angles. You can see the axis at the bottom of the GoPro case. A screw through it, Meccano parts, very simple. Second angle. You can understand how it's made. And just glued, stuck a sort of, you see that red thing is a sort of thick sellotape, mousse types thick sellotape, foam sellotape, sorry. Protects the GoPro case from the metal Meccano parts. And I have received these two brushless electric motors, this receiver compatible with my Spectrum remote control. I think this is an 8 channel. I just got 5 channels. That's fine. Brushless motors meant to go underwater, so this is quite good and easy to use. I don't have to make them waterproof, watertight, do anything complicated. I'll just have to screw them on the, I will call it fuselage, outside, and I will figure out a way to put these cables in via holes and make it nice and watertight. I'll show you this later in another video. I also received this water pump, but I made a mistake. This is a diaphragm water pump. It only pumps, it pumps in very efficiently, but it only pumps in one direction. And I'm in the need of pumping in both ways, upwards and downwards, when I inverse the polarity on the engine. I had to buy another pump, and this is the other pump I bought and received later. This one doesn't self-prime itself, it's a shame, but it pumps in both directions and it works fine with an ESC. Now, do we have anything new here? I just put everything in a box to have everything handy. This is the white plank that's going to slide in the tube. It's going to contain all the electronics on it. My remote control. I'm going to try and display everything. I'm going to test the electronics in another video separately. So just want to display the parts. Okay, that's the receiver. You have already seen it has 2 antennas. It's quite good. I've had the receiver that broke. Well, the antenna broke. There was only one antenna and the whole thing is dead. I can't manage to weld or solder it down properly. This has 2 antennas on the left, you can see. Redundancy is a good thing when you're making homemade things. You never work properly, you break things. Nice to have this sort of security. And I must say they were relatively cheap parts. This is the first pump, which will not be of any use. It works very well, but it only works in one direction. I want this, and I have bought a second pump since this video. The idea is for the pump to pump water in a syringe which will act as a ballast system. These, little servo, I've used two finally, one on top, one for the bottom fin. I'll need tube pumping the water in and out of the sub from the lake or river, whatever I'm in, into the syringe through the pump. That was useful. T-plugs for creating connections between the batteries, between the ESCs, between the motors. These bunch of RC cables, I didn't use them actually in the end. I found a way around it. I've only used one ESC for the two little propeller engines rather than one each. I was going to use this Y-shaped cable to control both ESCs for both engines. I've used one ESC for both propeller engines. This is the GoPro casing and its mechano parts to fix in the front of the submarine, basically. Make it nice watertight in case there's anything leaks. Obviously the rest of the electronics will be affected, but if we can save one thing, if we can save the GoPro, that will be good. I bought this, which might not be useful. It is an electronic switch and it is supposed to enable me to turn on and off anything. It's something to do with, on airplanes, lowering the gear up and down. I'm going to use it to turn on and off lights at the front of the submarine. These are the lights, LED lights. I bought these to repair a lamp I've got, and a torch. An LED. These are very powerful, very, very powerful lights. They require, 3.6 volts. I'll put 2 for my 7.4 volt battery, and they are very bright, very good. The two waterproof electronic brushless engines and a bunch of pipes, tubes gonna need. They work well. I'll show you another video on submarine. They propulse it quite well. They're quite fast. I mean, fast enough. I'm not doing a speedboat. I'm going to protect the wiring here with that black tubing you've seen. Now, what's left to tell you? What's left to show? Well, I don't know. Let's see. This tube is there. As you can see, I've thickened the front to drill holes in the plexiglass. I've added 2 layers of thickness. I glued in, and you can see the plank inside. It's sort of solid. It's not cardboard. I don't know what you call it. In these 2 added layers of thickness, I will drill holes and put screws. Oh, not screws, nuts and bolts, and bolt the plexiglass on with silicone mastic to make it waterproof. So this is going to be the front. It's going to be shut, completely shut, and this is the back, and I'm going to access this to slide in this this plank on which I will have everything, the syringe glued on it, not quite glued, fixed in it, all the electronics on it, the batteries fixed on it, and I'll simply slide everything in. There will only be obviously the 2 brushless engines for thrust. They will be on the fuselage, left on the fuselage. I'll have to connect those with plugs, but all the electronics goes inside via the hatch at the rear. Talking of the hatch, there it is. I'm going to glue it in like this. Glue this part. The other part simply unscrews, watertight, nice and watertight. That's meant for it, and it's going to be really easy to make and to use. And these are the premises of the fins. Very thin plexiglass, bad quality plexiglass sheet. I cut 2 bits and glued them together to have double thickness. Cut a sort of whatever shape that is, cut it, and I'm gonna paint it, as you're gonna see just right now. Paint it in black to have a nice finish. Nothing clever. I'll glue them together. Well, these are probably the 2 parts already, yeah, that's it, 2 parts already glued to a double thick layer, and then painting both sides. Hope you've enjoyed it. Like and subscribe if so. See you next time.